The American Vitagraph Company was founded in 1896 by Englishman Alfred E. Smith and newspaper cartoonist James Stuart Blackton. This company and these men would create an industry of film production and distribution that would become the blueprint for all that followed and would go relatively unchanged until the end of the studio system in the 1950s. The Vitagraph story is difficult to tell due to inconsistent accounts, contradictions, and fabrications, even by Smith and Blackton. Blackton stated that the beginning of their venture was when he was asked to interview Thomas Edison for World magazine.
He went to Edison because he was a newspaper cartoonist. And he went out to the Edison studio to interview Edison and do a drawing of him for the newspaper. But Edison sort of liked him, and he and Edison kind of hit it off, and then Edison showed him around the studio. And Blackton was very much taken with the possibility of cinema.
Blackton asked Edison if he could purchase one of his Edison projecting kinetoscopes, for which it was purported that he paid $100. Years later, Smith would contradict this and say that he built one instead. They presented showings of events from the Spanish-American War and the battle at Santiago Bay. Most were fake, using footage of reenactments shot at the studio. Using the projector to show films at vaudeville shows and other venues would only mean that their next step would be to start making films of their own. Vitagraph's first studio was located on the rooftop of this building on Nassau Street in Manhattan, now known as the Morse Building. It was here that on May 16, 1897, they would shoot their first film, a 60-second short entitled The Burglar on the Roof, with Smith operating the camera and Blackton playing the burglar. Little did they know they were creating the art of film. In 1905, the partners were so successful, they purchased land in Brooklyn. The American Vitagraph Company was the first modern motion picture production company in the U.S. The studio was located at the corner of East 14th Street and Locust Avenue. Writer Kevin Lewis stated, "The facility is roughly comparable to Henry Ford's revolutionizing of the auto industry with the assembly line." Vitagraph boasted the first glass-enclosed studio, a tank for battle and sea scenes, lavish sets, design and costume shops, business offices, and editing rooms. Vitagraph's film productions and innovations are just as impressive. In 1906, the studio released Humorous Phases of Funny Faces, featuring Vitagraph owner J. Stuart Blackton drawing on a blackboard, animating characters with stop-motion animation, making the film the first cartoon made in the U.S.
I think by 1907, they were doing everything. And they did Shakespeare adaptations, they did, opera stories like Francesca de Rimini. I know they did things like that. I mean, I think they were just looking for stories and doing everything.
In addition, the Vitagraph Company produced historical films, which featured literary classics such as A Tale of Two Cities, as well as religious epics, including The Life of Moses, that many claim is the first full-length motion picture made in the U.S. Vitagraph proved that audiences were willing to sit through a film more than one reel in length. The studio was responsible for launching the careers of legendary actors and actresses, including Mabel Normand, John Bunny, Bronco Billy Anderson, Wallace Reed, and Norma Talmadge. Today, the last remaining remnant of the studio is the legendary Vitagraph smokestack that has towered over Flatbush for more than 100 years. Unfortunately, the smokestack is scheduled to be demolished in the near future, and the preparations to do so are well underway. This historic icon of early film is the last witness to the birth of an art form and the standard by which all future films would be measured.